Shortly after graduating from college, at the age of 25, I committed myself to marriage. Fate had brought me together with a man who had captured my heart in my 5th year of college. It didn't bother me that she was 8 years older than me or that she had a 10-year-old son. Love knows no boundaries. We met, moved in together a couple months later, and 9 more months later we were married. Another 9 months later, our son was born. A few months before this joyous event, we moved into a new apartment that I bought before we were married. The first 5 years of our marriage were relatively smooth and quiet. Our family income grew steadily, and we were able to afford a nice car. My wife and children went on annual vacations to Turkey and Egypt, and I worked hard to provide for them. My wife took care of the household and our children with love and dedication. However, after her maternity leave, she expressed her desire to return to work. She returned to her old job as an accountant, but then the devil tempted me by offering her a position in the same company where I worked as a sales manager. We worked on different floors of the building. Me on the 5th floor, her on the 1st. She started out as an ordinary manager, but after 6 months she was promoted to head of the department. Everything seemed to be going well. My wife had a team of young employees aged 22 to 25, and they all got on well together. They celebrated company parties and holidays together. However, around this time, I began to notice warning signs. In the evenings, my wife was spending a lot of time texting with an old acquaintance on Facebook. At first, I brushed it off, not giving it much thought, but in the back of my mind, it left an unpleasant feeling. Even though I trusted my wife blindly, I couldn't shake the anxiety. Soon our problems began to manifest themselves in our intimate life as well. My wife would make excuses to avoid intimacy, citing stomach pains, headaches, or even an injury to her pinky toe. There was always a reason. Our relationship became strained. We fought often and spent most evenings minding our own business and keeping our distance from each other. I have to admit, I wasn't an angel either. Over the years, I had unraveled myself and gained excess weight. I was no longer the dream partner or father figure I once was. This cycle continued for about a year until it came to an inevitable end. In hindsight, I can see that it was clear. One day, most of my spouse's coworkers tendered their resignations and left for a competing company. A few weeks later, my spouse began to express her dissatisfaction with her job, claiming that the CEO was a tyrant and she was tired of working there. I supported her decision to leave, and she eventually wrote her resignation letter and worked for 2 more weeks before leaving the company. However, her leaving caused tension with the CEO, and I tried to convince her to stay, but she refused. In the end, I couldn't stand the pressure and decided to leave with her. But it was really only me who left, as my wife quickly found a new job in the same company she had previously left. While I looked for a new job for 2 weeks, I ended up getting a position in a completely different industry, the fitness industry. When everything fell into place, I decided to make a drastic change in my life, both externally and internally. I went on a strict diet, lost 10 pounds in just 2.5 months, and fully immersed myself in my new job. But during this time, there were events that I did not notice because I blindly trusted my wife. She often went out for walks in the evenings and weekends, sometimes taking our child with her, and spent a lot of time texting on Facebook, presumably with her new coworkers. To make matters worse, she had bought a new cell phone and always kept it with her, not wanting to part with it. One Wednesday evening, my wife suddenly had to go to work for a mandatory event. I stayed home with the kids, and after about 40 minutes, I decided to call her for some reason. The call went through, but I soon realized that her phone was on in the car, and she didn't know it. I listened for about 20 minutes to her talking to another man. I couldn't make out everything that was said, but I could tell it was an intimate conversation. When she realized I could hear her, she ended the conversation and turned off her phone. 2 hours later, she came home and immediately confessed to the affair, saying she was leaving and didn't want to be with me anymore. When I asked who the man was, she made up a whole story, claiming he was a 32-year-old single man she had met recently and dated briefly. What about me? I am a majestic deer adorned with elegant, sprawling antlers. Despite the hurt and betrayal I felt, I chose to forgive her. After all, we had a son together, A young boy of only 5 years. How could he grow up without the presence of his father? These thoughts consumed me during that difficult time. In a last attempt to salvage our family, I gave her 2 weeks to make a decision. Either she cuts ties with her extramarital affairs and commits fully to our family, or she runs away. Those 2 weeks were the most agonizing of my life, my emotions too complex to put into words. Meanwhile, my spouse continued to carry on with her daily routine, going to work and taking our child to the park in the evenings. At the end of the 2 weeks, she expressed her desire to keep our family together. However, she asked to spend the last day before our reconciliation at the lake with her old work friends. She wanted to relax and take our children with her so I wouldn't suspect anything. Being a dear, I was hopeful for our future and agreed to her request. As they left on Saturday morning, my intuition began to nag at me. I couldn't shake off this feeling of uneasiness. When I saw the bag she left behind, I couldn't resist the urge to look through it. And there it was, a flash drive filled with incriminating photos. Photos that revealed the truth about her infidelity. My heart sank as I realized the extent of her betrayal. I was a fool, blind to the obvious signs. She had been having an affair with a 22-year-old, only 6 years older than her own son, who also happened to be her subordinate from our previous job. The worst part was that her colleagues were all aware of their relationship, as they often hung out together. And to make matters worse, at that very moment, she was with him and our children at the lake, enjoying their time together as a family. My eyes were open to the reality of my pathetic and insignificant existence in her life. It was a harsh realization. I couldn't deny the truth any longer. She returned home the next evening, only to find her belongings waiting for her in the hallway. Our marriage had come to an end, and I couldn't help but feel like a deer caught in headlights, stunned by what I had discovered.